Welcome, everybody, to Fourth and Frames. I'm Chris Battistone. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Drew Scott and Rhett Manuel. And tonight, we are giving you our Rookie Mock 3.0 March edition. Let's get it.
This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Like I said at the top, I am joined by some of the two brightest minds in the business, Drew Scott and Rhett Manuel. Fellas, how is it going this evening?
It's going wonderful, man. It's like in my household, this is like Christmas Eve. Like I've got my Christmas pajamas on. You know, I'm waking up Christmas morning tomorrow with opening day and baseball back. So it's a beautiful night over here, man.
Baseball. What is baseball?
my first true love. That's what baseball is.
Well, Chris, first off, baseball is to America as hockey is to Canada. In case you didn't realize, but yeah, man, everything's well on my end. You know, just out here, spent a little time with the family this evening. You know, came back over here, ready to chop it up with two of my favorite dudes in the industry, two of my favorite people in the world. We're just ready to have a good time tonight, man.
Yeah, we're 4 weeks away from the draft. Did you guys take in any of LSU's pro day? Malik Neighbors ran the 4.3. Of course, the pro day 4.3 is always going to be a little bit more friendly to the guy running it on their home turf. We saw the 4.34. Some people have clocked him in at 4.39, but a solid number nonetheless. Has that swayed any of you guys with the wide receiver talk of putting Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison at all?
Until I see the guys on fantasy Twitter that like clip the 40 and time it out with their little edit thing and make it really official, I can't really move Neighbors too high. I don't really know if that 40 is legit until I see those guys clock that. So for now, I've still got Marv at 1. But no, this stuff doesn't change anything for me.
No, it's a pro day. Pro day is one of these things where, of course, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. The clocks might start a little bit earlier or a little bit later than it normally should, whatever it is. At the end of the day, you know, it's still Marv. I know Marv didn't do his pro day. Whatever. His draft stock is safe. I'm seeing all these mock things go crazy. It doesn't really matter to me. He's the best. He's the best wide receiver in the draft. So I will say that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 race is a little closer than I had it a couple weeks ago in there. Maybe some movement tonight. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, it's pretty solid for me right now. I don't know about you guys, but my rankings pretty much don't get adjusted up until after the draft is when we get the capital and we get the landing spots and we can break down the schemes and how those players are going to fit into those systems. Are your guys' rankings pretty much set? Are you still tinkering? Are you still going over tape? Is your analysis on the rookie class up until the draft point completed, or are you still just fine-tuning it?
Fine-tuning, diving into analytics right now a little bit more right now, looking at some yards per route run stuff. Just all those little things that might not show up on tape that are going to matter at the end of the day are the things I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, mine are set for the most part until I'll say for the guys, most of the guys we'll talk about for our mock draft today, they're set. There's still some of the deeper guys that I could still do more work on. But honestly, once I get so deep, I try to just wait to let the NFL tell me who I need to watch more tape on. See, the guys that got draft capital I wasn't expecting or that I didn't have ranked, I'll go back and watch those guys. But for the most part, it's pretty much set until the draft.
Right. So then let's get to it. Yeah, we got a Superflex Rookie Mock, half-point PPR, 0.5 tight end premium, because that just seems to be the way that we are going. We got almost a full room, so the boys will make the picks here for the PCs. I am at the top of the board, and Superflex, my mind hasn't been changed at all. It's been pretty steady with me throughout the whole process. My 101 is Caleb Williams. I don't know about you guys. Can you guys make an argument for someone else at the 101 here over Caleb? Because I'd love to hear it.
No. I think we're pretty set in stone at that point. I mean, it's Caleb Williams until proven otherwise, and really it hasn't been proven otherwise at this point. Especially with speaking of pro days, apparently Jaden Daniels was not great at the pro day today, so that might shake things up a little bit in terms of that QB2 spot. But I guess that's for our 1-2 to decide and go from there, huh?
Yeah. But the lip gloss, the pink phone case, the painted nails is not gonna sway your decision on Caleb Williams at all.
Oh, he's confident.
No.
Fuck, my God.
I love
No.
it, man. The ultimate troll job. I love it, man. I love it. We got the 102s on the board. Looks like he's going to time out. If he does time out, the consensus 102 has been Marvin Harrison. We're good with giving to Marvin Harrison here if he times out for us.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
That's good.
In half-point PPR, he's pretty much the guy that's been going. We'll set the player. We'll give him Marv 3 Superflex. Chalk pick has been, we got Malik Neighbors there. Push the quarterbacks back. Drew at 1.5, seeing the two wide receivers go. You pretty excited with how the board's falling for you there?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie. Whatever we're doing a mock and I get to pick my spot, I just purposely pick the end of a tier somewhere so that I don't have to do too much thinking while we're live, and I just grab the guy that's left. And I've got a tier break at 5, so it makes it easy for me to decide who to pick.
Yeah, I like it. And speaking of the wide receiver class as a whole, how much are you looking at the landing spot for, let's say, the top 5 guys? Marvin Harrison Jr., Neighbors, Odunze, Worthy, and Brian Thomas Jr. We're a big Brian Thomas Jr. show here, so we're going to put him into that top 5. For these 5 guys, are all 5 of them QB proof, or is landing spot going to determine, at least maybe for the back 3, where you're going to fit these guys into your rankings there? We'll start with you, Rhett.
I'm going to go ahead and say that 1, 2, and 3, so Harrison through Odunze, are all pretty solid. And as high as I was on Brian Thomas earlier in this process, diving into it a little bit more thanks to your help, I'm kind of starting to think, well, he may be a little bit more QB dependent than I thought he was. And Xavier Worthy, has a huge upside, has a huge speed, great in the intermediate routes. But at the end of the day, with a guy like that, as slight as he is, I mean, it is going to be a system fit. So 4 and 5, I really feel like are guys that need to ultimately be QB dependent there.
Yeah, and if you wanna put wide receiver 3 Romo Dunze there at
right
go ahead and put him there. That was going to be the next pick, and I'm going to echo what Rhett said. As far as those top 3 receivers go, Marv, Neighbors, Odunze, I've pretty much got them in their own separate tiers. But after that, I think those 3 are pretty set in stone, but the landing spot of the NFL draft can definitely change things for Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas, and then, I would even put Troy Franklin and A.D. Mitchell in that group as well. Maybe Ladd with him getting some first-round draft buzz. There's a couple receivers really once you get past that top 3 that I could see a little bit of shuffling going on.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So let's play a bit of a game here with those back, let's say 4 wide receivers. We'll play a game with Franklin, Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., and we'll throw in Adonai Mitchell there. We'll start with you, Drew. I'm going to give you the wide receiver, and you're going to give me your prime landing spot for that wide receiver. So your wish landing spot for this guy to go come draft day. But before we do that, let's make the pick for number 8 here. We've had JJ McCarthy go at 1-7, 4 QBs, 3 wide receivers. Is this where we take Brock Bowers with the tight end premium?
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, this is the Bauer spot right here. The value is just too great at this point. 1-8. If you get him a draft at a tight end premium at 1-8, you're doing well for yourself. So yeah, Bowers is here.
All right, Drew. So back to the game. I'm going to throw the first one at you.
Real quick, yes, Jamie, this is
Superflex. Yeah. Real quick. So Adonai Mitchell, Drew, what's your primary landing spot that would make him a premier target for you?
I'm gonna say, and this probably be a popular answer for a lot of them, but just thinking about teams where like or the area where he would go back in the first round, I think I would just like to see him paired up with Josh Allen in Buffalo. I think that would be my favorite spot for AD Mitchell playing on the opposite side of Stephon Diggs, let Khalil Shakir work in the middle, and then one of two tight ends that they have. I'd like to see him with Josh Allen.
Yep, I like that. Before we get to the next one, Rhett, let's make the pick here for 10. We got Brian Thomas going after Brock Bowers. We got Mitchell, Worthy, Franklin, the running backs still on the board. The running backs have been pretty much pushed back until early second there for the most part in most of the mocks that we've taken part of. Have any of the running backs made a case to jump up here in the back end of the first for you guys?
No, I don't think so. And I think the pick here is probably Xavier Worthy based off of the fact that he's been going up draft boards. I think the upside is there. I think after doing research, he's a guy that is going to be much more than just a deep ball guy. Like I said, I saw some really nice intermediate route stuff on him a couple days ago that really interests me. So I think Worthy's the best guy here at 110.
Yeah,
Can you
I
make a
agree.
case for anybody else?
No, Worthy's the next man up on my board as well. I agree 100%.
Right.
So before I answer your question about the running backs, I want to, you, Chris, you put out a perfect tweet, and we talked about this, I know, in our separate discussion that we've had. But the narrative around Xavier Worthy feels kind of backwards sometimes, like comparing his 40 time compared to other guys that ran a 4.2. Like if you look at their production compared to Xavier Worthy's, those don't really stack up. They're not the same player just because they're fast. And a lot of his, you mentioned it in the tweet about Quinn Ewers not necessarily pushing the ball downfield. So you factoring in that to his numbers as well. I think that I think he's a lot more than just a really fast guy. It's a great bonus that he also is a really fast guy. But as far as the running backs go, I won't be surprised post NFL draft if one of them does sneak into the back of the first round. Like as soon as we see one of these top running backs like Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, whoever your choice is, Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd, if we see one of those running backs go to a prime landing spot in day two, like one of them lands in Dallas in the second round, I think if you put Trey Benson on the Cowboys in the second round of the NFL draft, he's going to be picked probably here like around Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy. Like, so I do think there will be at least one running back that ends up being in the first round, but draft capital is really important for me whenever I'm looking at running back. So I would have to wait until after the NFL draft to put one up there.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat with that. Once one of these guys lands in one of these premier spots, it's gonna pole vault their draft value. I don't really see any of them jumping ahead of Brian Thomas, Brock Bowers, JJ McCarthy in that regards, unless JJ McCarthy falls back into the second round of the NFL draft. I can see his stock taking a bit of a hit, and then maybe one of the running backs jumping up ahead of him. But for the most case, like I got no problem. You want to take a running back ahead of Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, or Troy Franklin at this point, right? Because they're talented dudes, and you're taking the RB1 over maybe the wide receiver 6 or 7 at that point in the draft. So 2-2. We got another timeout here for Shia LaBeouf. He's probably out digging holes. Let's set the player. Are we picking the running back here? Is there?
This is where I would take RB1. Yeah.
So who's your RB1? Because this is where
Brooks
the landscape shifts so much between everybody.
Yeah. I've got one spot. Just so I've technically got Jonathan Brooks as my running back 1, but I have Brooks and Trey Benson in tier 1 together. So if somebody disagrees, I have no problem with either one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm a Brooks guy, but I can see where Benson is at this point simply because of the health factor. But I think Brooks is probably the better long-term guy here.
Yeah, and ending up with a draft where you end up with the wide receiver 1 and to most the RB1. You can't hate that. And walking away with the RB1 in the second round of the draft, picking at the top end. You can't be mad of a draft like that. So just recapping the first, pretty chalky throughout the whole way. Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Romo Dunze, JJ McCarthy, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, Rhett there with the 112. Rhett, what is your pick for landing spot for Ladd McConkey? Like where do you think he gets the most value from come draft time?
And honestly, I know it's not going to happen here because he's not going to be a mid first round guy. So it really doesn't make sense. So let's get down to that first round and let's see who is kind of wide receiver needy and who can kind of help out right here. Oh, that might be interesting for him with Josh Reynolds just getting signed in free agency. Ladd McConkey in Detroit to kind of play that slot role for them. Maybe a little bit of outside stuff next to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams kind of stretching the field and doing that thing. I think Ladd, I know he wouldn't be a top-notch fantasy guy with Laporta and Amon-Ra and all those different things they have going on. But in terms of a purely football fit, that might be a great spot for him. But in terms of a fantasy fit, I mean, early second, you probably have to say that he might do pretty good and he might be pretty useful for Carolina at the top of the second if he were to fall to the early second round.
I love that. I love that Carolina fit there because they're going to need more pieces other than Deontay Johnson. Yes, they had Adam Thielen, and we saw Adam Thielen kind of, I don't want to say flourish. I don't think that's the word we want to use because he was the only guy there for Bryce Young to throw the ball to. But anytime you can build around a young quarterback in that Canales system, and we've seen wide receivers have success in that system, it's only going to bode well for them. So who should we pick here, Drew? Who's the pick?
I've got so my next best running back up is Braylon Allen. My next best receiver is Javon Baker. So I don't know if you guys differ a ton in your rankings. Who next available is for you? I'd be willing to to talk this out. Chris, I know you're high on Braylon Allen. Is he still RB1 for you?
Yeah, I still got him up there as the RB1 dynasty wise.
Yeah.
It's his age that's going to push it for me. He's a capable dude in the backfield. He's like 20 years old. He's coming into the league. You're going to get that premier usage, that good chunk amount, 20 to 24. That's 4 years. You're going to be able to get this guy and get a good amount of usage out of him. So for me, he's not talented enough where the age isn't the age outweighs where his talent. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to say here. Where his age kind of doesn't outweigh the talent. You know what I'm trying to say there?
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
He is super young coming into the league though, and he's got good size. It'll be interesting to see how he develops as far as being a more well-rounded back. Even though I know that Wisconsin didn't use the running backs a ton in the passing game, I still think he has a little bit to gain in both, both pass catching and pass blocking as well. But he is still super young, something to keep in mind. Like, and he has the body built for it. I think it's just like more of a technique and a reps thing to where if a team invests that technique and reps to him, I think that it'll be a worthy investment. But as far as Jamie's question, which running back goes to Dallas? Are you moving the guy up your boards? It really just depends on context. Like, did he go to Dallas in the second round, or did he go to Dallas in the fifth round? Because if they don't invest early in a running back, it could be a guy that's getting pushed up, even though the draft capital, the investment from the team really isn't there. So it really just depends on the player, how high I am on the player, I guess. And because if you asked me last year, hey, what if Sean Tucker goes to this great opening in day 3, I would have been excited and I would have been a fool. But typically I try to follow the draft capital. So it just really depends on where the draft pick comes from.
Counterpoint, Drew. What if Dallas knows a guy can fall later and he's a guy that they're high on and he goes in the 5th round and he's a guy that's kind of been buzzy around some of these draft boards? Because let's face it, behind him currently that Dallas depth chart is Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis. Are we really putting faith in either of those guys? That's the question.
Yeah. And Mike McCarthy's come out and already said that they're still building that room. They're still going to be working on that room. So
now, if this happens second round to Dallas, that it's gonna be tough to find a spot where that wouldn't be RB1, assuming I don't just completely hate the player. But even at that point, I have to swallow my pride a little bit and realize that if NFL teams willing to invest second round draft capital, they're probably better than I think they are. So I would have to move them up at that point.
Yeah.
So what if it's Brooks in the 5th round?
Then that's the one specific guy where I'm like, man, he's dealing with the injury, so maybe that's why his draft capital's falling, and I like the talent. But again, I mean, you know, to some extent we have to listen to what the NFL tells us, and you know, despite what some of us want to believe, these scouts are pretty good at their job, and so and if you just look at draft capital and what that does, how that correlates with fantasy points in the future, it kind of speaks for itself. It's not a perfect hit rate. Nobody's perfect, but more often than not, if you listen to what the NFL's telling you, you're going to be doing okay.
Yeah, there you have it. All right, Rhett, what's the pick here? Are we picking one of the quarterbacks in Penix or Knicks? Are we reaching up for Rattler? Are we picking another tight end with the premium? Where are we going at this 2-8 spot?
I think my best player available right here is probably Marshawn Lloyd, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, he's a guy who has tested well throughout the process, has, solid, has shown good hands, had a great final season at USC. I'm going to go ahead and say that whenever I saw him on tape and he looked a little bit slow, apparently I was wrong in that situation, and that's fine. He's a guy that if he's in the 2nd, 3rd round of a draft board, especially in a place like Dallas, we keep missing Dallas because that's probably the ideal landing spot. But Dallas, a San Diego, or something like that. If any of these guys, the Giants, if any of these guys, any of these top running backs land in one of these spots, like Drew talked about earlier, these guys are getting a draft bump for sure in these rookie drafts.
100%.
All right. 2nd round, pretty chalk again, full of the running backs, exactly what we expected. If you got a bunch of 2nd round rookie picks, expect the 2nd round to be running back heavy. We got to pick the 210 here. They already have Xavier Worthy. Let's look at it in the aspect of roster building. You're at the 110. You're most likely a contending team. Maybe you were 1st place, just missed the finals. Maybe you were that 3rd or 4th place team and just need that couple of extra pieces for you to push you over the edge. You have Xavier Worthy. Where else would you go to help push your team forward with the players that are still left here in the player pool?
Who's your best player available, Rhett?
I'm going to say this, that at this point, you probably have Michael Penix is going to be a pretty good value at 210 in a Superflex format. I think he is a guy that, ugly throwing motion aside, which is a thing that a lot of people have talked about, he really has come out and he's had the clean injury history that's come out during the draft process. He's thrown the ball well throughout the process as well. He's a guy that I think has been sneaking up some NFL draft boards back into that 1st round conversation. And now we might be talking about a guy who in the late 2nd round might be a pretty good value in rookie drafts as well.
All right, so Chris, you're going to have to split the difference here because I partially agree with Jamie. I think that with tight end premium, Sanders could be the pick. I have one receiver that I've already mentioned also, but so Javon Baker, Jatavion Sanders. Those are my still two best available. My take on the quarterbacks essentially is after the top 4, I'm probably not touching one until the 3rd round. Pre-draft, post-draft, like if one of these guys ends up getting back at the 1st round draft capital, then that'll probably change. But right now, once you get outside that top 4, the next time I see a quarterback pop up is 26th overall. So, he's in a 12-team league. He's a 3rd round pick for me. So it would be between Javon Baker, Jatavion Sanders for me, Penix for Penix for Rhett. So Chris, we'll let you split the difference.
We'll go with the viewer pick. We'll go with Jatavion Sanders here with the tight end premium. It's not a bad pick at all. For most, he's the tight end 2 of the class. You put him right there if he ends up in a great situation, a team that's going to utilize his skill set. He's another guy. He could be one of those rookie tight ends like we've seen over the past couple years that have come in and just help fantasy managers that draft these guys in the 2nd to 3rd round. Like we've seen Laporta come in, 2nd round draft pick, just come in and now he's to some, I know he's not to Drew, but to some, he's the dynasty tight end one. Then we got Sanders, Wilson, Rhett. Got his guy, got Michael Penix there. Second round, Troy Franklin, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, Keon Coleman. We saw a run of running backs right after that. Trey Benson, Braylon Allen, Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd. Then we had Xavier Legette go at the 2-9. Jatavion Sanders, Roman Wilson, Michael Penix Jr. I want to get back to the landing spot game, and I want both of your favorite landing spots for, you can't pick the same one now. I got one. I want to hear your two. Xavier Worthy. Give me the perfect landing spot for Xavier Worthy. And Drew, you can go first, man.
I mean, I know they just got Hollywood, but it's got to be Kansas City for me. Like, Hollywood's only a 1-year deal. It just, Xavier, if there was any coach that I would bet on to use Xavier Worthy correctly, it would be Andy Reid. And then it's just the added bonus he'd also be playing with the best quarterback in the league. So Hollywood is a very short-term thing in my mind as far as Kansas City goes. And so I'd love to see Xavier Worthy in Kansas City.
Rhett?
21 overall, wouldn't put it past Mike McDaniel to reach for the speed and get him right there in Miami. I mean, the story writes itself. I mean, Mike McDaniel is obsessed with speed, whether it be Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. I mean, the only guy on that offense that isn't fast is Durham Smythe. Let's be honest. Shout out Durham Smythe. So, I know I had to get my Smythe drop in. So at this point, I mean, I know it's probably not going to happen, but I mean, it's one of those things where you want to talk about good fits. Didn't Tyreek Hill make mentions in the past that he's trying to retire sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, he gave the 3-year remark.
Yeah.
So
I think it was beginning of last season. Yeah.
So put that in a hypothetical situation. I'm just saying it's not a definite, but if this is the build Miami wants to have, which is speed, then Xavier Worthy with a guy who likes to throw the deep ball like Tua, I mean, it makes sense to me. I think that'd be a pretty fun fit myself.
Yeah, I like it. For me, I mean, I would love to see Xavier Worthy in two spots. One would be Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield alongside Chris Godwin playing in the slot and Mike Evans on the other side of him. I mean, you put him in that system. I know it's not the same offensive system that they had last season with Canales moving to Carolina, but Baker was one of the top quarterbacks when it came to throwing the deep ball. He's a guy that's not afraid to chuck it. And you give him a speedster like Xavier Worthy who can get out there and beat the coverage. I think it's a recipe for success. Now, the amount of targets might be limited because of the amount of mouths to feed in Tampa Bay, but the fit there with the quarterback just fits so well for what he can do. And then the other landing spot would be Arizona with Kyler Murray. If the Cardinals do keep Kyler Murray, yeah. I would love to see Xavier Worthy in Arizona. Maybe even if they get another guy there early in the draft for Kyler. Say they pick Marvin Harrison at the top end of the draft and find a way to move up, or with another pick in the draft, they end up with Xavier Worthy. Would be a nice 1-2 punch there. So
yeah, Arizona at 27 is probably the right answer. You're right.
Yeah, and they would sneak up and beat some of those teams to the punch, like a Kansas City or a Baltimore, or one of those teams that might be looking for a speedster. If San Francisco moves on from Brandon Ayuk, they might be looking to add another wide receiver to that system. So being in that prime spot for Arizona to possibly add two high-profile wide receivers, you got a dominant contested catch guy in Marvin Harrison, and then you got a elite separator in Xavier Worthy. I mean, that offense instantly gets a injection of just top tier pass catching options, and Kyler Murray is going to just jump up draft boards if that does happen. So third round, Baker, Nix, Ricky Pearsall, Ray Davis, Malachi Corley. Drew picked the Malachi Corley there. Great pick, Drew. With the sixth pick, Odunze, Braylon Allen. Who should we be looking at here? Are we pivoting to tight end? Is this where we would look at a quarterback considering the value in the third round?
So I would be looking at tight end. I'll be looking at your boy.
Yeah. Benny Sins, Ben Sinnott. I mean, it's a great pick, Drew. I mean, you're a smart man.
And
I
tight
love
end
to.
premium, that would be next best for me. And I would just like to also echo what Jamie said. Javon Baker, he got sniped. A great pick there at the top of the third round. He's 17th overall for me. I think Javon Baker should be a second round pick at this point. So I concur. Great pick there at the top of the third.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great pick. Smart guy made that one. So we got Ben
He sure
Sinnott
did.
at the 3-6. Jorge with Bucky Irving at the 3-7. We're 2.5 rounds in, fellas. Any surprise picks right now? Or pretty chalk?
I think I'm gonna sound like a Michigan hater, man. Looking at the board, I it's gonna sound like I hate the University of Michigan. I think in a tight end premium, I would be taking Brock Bowers over JJ McCarthy, and then even possibly the couple receivers that went after him. I understand what people see in JJ. I get the traits and the upside, and he's young and he has the tools. I get it. Like I get people that make the case, but just whenever I watch the games, I just can't. I don't really see it. And again, if the NFL disagrees with me and on draft day he goes in like the top 10, or if he goes 4 overall, like people are saying, then I will adjust my thinking. But right now, as things stand, until the NFL tells us what to believe, I'm not as high on as consensus on JJ. And same thing with Blake Corum. I'm not sold on him as a running back either. I don't really know how much of it was him versus how much of it was the fact they had arguably the best offensive line for like the last 3 years, and I don't really know how much he really created on his own. And down the stretch last year, even though he was getting healthier, his numbers were worse. And so Blake Corum's another one to where like I've got Blake Corum is. Hang on, I'll tell you. Blake Corum is my running back 7. And in this draft, he went as the running back 2. So,
yeah,
I promise I don't hate the University of Michigan. I have no bias against them. I'm a Kentucky fan. I have no reason to hate Michigan, but
sit on
those
a
were the
throne of
2.
lies.
Yeah, those were the 2 picks for me that were kind of. And I feel bad even saying that because I love Jamie. He's such a great supporter of the show and is always so active in the mock. So I have no doubt that Jamie has done his research and has his reasons for being higher on Blake Corum than me. But yeah, apparently I don't like the University of Michigan. I don't know, man.
Rhett, before we get to your answer there, let's make the pick for 3-8. Who are we taking? They got Brock Bowers. They got Marshawn Lloyd. Are they going wide receiver here?
I think the best player available right now is probably Jalen Polk, against my intentions of trying to get him later on right there, hopefully at the end of the third. But I'm just go ahead and keep it real right here. I think he's probably the best guy available. I think there's some slight upside here. I think this is a guy that produced well in an offense that had a lot of different weapons, and he was still able to produce 1,000-yard seasons at Washington. So, yeah, I think Jalen Polk is a guy that is definitely good value there in the late third.
Yep, I like the pick. So, Rhett, we'll make the pick here at 310. Then I want to get your insight onto maybe one of the biggest surprises in your eyes so far through 3 rounds. So, the 10th spot right now, they've drafted Xavier Worthy. They've drafted Jatavion Sanders.
They need a running back.
They need a running back. Well, let's give them
a running back. Tested kind of slow, but he's much faster than what his 40 time is. There's no way he's not.
Rich Eisen. You were talking Audric Estime? We going to Notre Dame? Yeah, I like Audric Estime. What would be?
He's still my 22nd overall player.
I don't hate it, man. I don't hate. He's a big dude. I think the NFL is gonna love him. If you had to pick a spot for him to land, where would it be?
I'll bring him to Los Angeles with me. bring him to the Rams.
I don't hate that, man. I don't hate that at all. You want him on a team that sees a lot of trips to the red zone. So the Los Angeles Rams would be a great pick there because he's a big body dude, and if he ends up on a team that sees goal line work a lot, sees a lot of trips down there inside the 20, man, he could be that double-digit touchdown guy for you. Might not see the volume that you want out of your running back, but could see the double-digit touchdown. So, Rhett, Give me your biggest surprise of the draft so far, man.
I'll do that,
I mean,
Jamie.
I know it's a tight end premium, but I mean Theo Johnson and a tight end premium late third. I mean, I know he tested well, like he tested really well at the combine, ran somewhere around a 4.6. But I think the question has to be asked. I mean, how we saw this last year with a guy like Darnell Washington, who came out, was a big body in the NFL draft, did tremendous in the combine, got drafted too high, and frankly, the landing spot didn't really hit for him. So until we know where Theo Johnson is landing, I'm not comfortable taking him in the third round myself, even in the tight end premium.
Yep, I don't hate that. So you're up on the pick. What you're thinking here, Rhett?
Man, I'm one of these guys where right now, usually in a rookie draft, we're talking late third round. You're looking for guys who have upside, who have value, who know that they're going to have a translatable trait. So I'm going to go running back here, and I'm going to go with Will Shipley because he is one of these guys that is going to have a pass catching role in the league. And with this being a half PPR format that we're going with, I mean, he's also shown the ability to run the ball, but regardless, he's going to come in day one somewhere, probably be in a timeshare where he can get some third down work, and wouldn't shock me to see him catch somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 balls next year in the right situation.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that feels like he could land somewhere, start out as a third down back, be an injury away from being in a workhorse role, and then once he gets that workhorse role, end up capitalizing on it off of volume and skill. I like that pick. I think that's a great shot to take at the back of the third.
I don't like the pick because I was going to take him, Rhett. I don't like the pick at all. When you guys are drafting in your rookie drafts, is it talent over need throughout the whole draft for you? Or is there a pivot point where you pivot from need to talent or talent to need? So you got a team, you need a quarterback or you need a wide receiver, but there's, this top end tight end there, top end running there. Are you going to bypass your team's need and take talent all the time? Or is that something you wait for maybe a little later in the draft?
My personal philosophy is this. I like to go need first 2 rounds, need plus talent. Basically try to get as surefire of a guy as I can. And then in rounds 3 and 4, pretty much regardless, I'm upside hunting. That's kind of what my philosophy is.
I do draft best player available and then trade for need. Draft for talent, trade for need. That's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah, two different strategies. I'm kind of on the red side there. I'm always going to try to look to build a little bit of my roster, especially if I'm on the top end of the draft board, like those first 5 picks when I know I can get that top end asset for me, for my team. I'm gonna go and get that guy. I'm gonna go get what I need, and then pivot to talent a little later and try to move those pieces that I've acquired a little later in the draft. So we're heading into the 4th round. Recapping the third: Javon Baker, Bo Nix, Ricky Pearsall, Ray Davis, Malachi Corley, Ben Sinnott, Bucky Irving, Jalen Polk, Theo Johnson, Audric Estime. How the mighty have fallen. Devontae Walker slowly descending to the 4th round. Will Shipley to cap off the 3rd. Heading into the 4th, we got our 6th QB taken with Spencer Rattler. Luke McCaffrey makes an appearance. Malik Washington, Jace McClellan, Jalen McMillan. Great pick there, Drew. I think that's probably the value of the draft for me in Jalen McMillan coming out of that.
Yeah, he is no business
coming out of that.
Okay.
in that Washington offense. I mean, I'm probably taking him. I mean, I probably should have taken him there at the 4-1 ahead of Rattler, considering who the player is. But I'm taking him ahead of McCaffrey. Right now, I think I'm taking him ahead of Devontae Walker.
I'm taking him ahead of his teammate, Jalen Polk, that got drafted at the 3-8. I would actually take McMillan where Polk got taken. That's where I've got him on my draft board. So Polk and then every receiver after that, I'm taking McMillan over those guys. I think he's being slept on a little bit right now. I think we're forgetting how good he was on the field prior to injury, the year before last. So I think he's a guy that could end up rising a little bit. I don't think he'll be a 4th round pick after the draft.
Agreed. let's make the pick here for 6. Rhett, what are you looking at? Who's your BPA here in the 4th round? Who's the top of your board?
I mean, right now, I look at guys in my queue. I have Brendan Rice, Jacob Cowing, Cody Schrader, Isaiah Davis, and Dylan Laub. Once again, Dylan Laub, one of these pass catching guys that I find interesting. But I think the best player available here is probably Rice or Cowing. I'll let Drew pick between them and not make me look like the idiot here.
I've got Isaiah Davis, who apparently is going to be like my Sean Tucker of this year. He's going to be the day 3 undrafted guy, running back that I like a lot. And then I've got Jacob Cowing up next. So that Jacob Cowing has been the name that has been similar between the both of us. So we'll go with that.
We'll go with Cowing there at the 6. Jorge with Brendan Rice, probably salivating with that pick. Another guy that probably shouldn't be dropping to the 4-7 there. He's had a decent draft. McCarthy, Wright, Irving, Rice. I want to talk about a little bit more McCarthy and go back to that subject. But before we do, let's pick the 4-8 here. Who's on top of your board there, Drew?
It's Isaiah Davis, man. My
Davis.
My day 3 or undrafted running back crush of the year, I guess.
So just to touch on McCarthy before we end this this
the
draft
Malik
here.
Washington paid a pick apparently
Has made some
really messed up a lot of people. I guess Malik Washington apparently is who Preston Evans meant to pick instead of well, no, Malik Washington was already off the board. Maybe it was Jalen McMillan that, yeah, it was. Drew, you got who I meant to get. So Jalen McMillan shouldn't have been on the board for my pick. So shout out to Preston for wanting to grab him before that.
Yeah, great pick there. But if JJ McCarthy ends up on the Vikings, like a lot of people are talking about him, ending up in Minnesota, does that put him into top 3 for any of you guys? Or is he solidified the 4th QB in the class?
In this scenario, do the other 3 quarterbacks go like before Minnesota picks?
So we'll say Caleb Williams won. So all the hot mocks in the streets right now got the Vikings moving up to the Cardinals pick, or just right in that area to move up and take, or the 5th pick where the Chargers are to take JJ McCarthy. So we'll say Caleb Williams goes to the Bears. We'll say Jaden Daniels goes to Washington. Drake May to New England. If the Vikings move up to take JJ McCarthy, are you moving him ahead of any of the other 3 quarterbacks in the class?
Caleb Williams would still be in a tier by himself. That part would be solidified. Jaden Daniels, I would definitely still have above both of them if he goes to Washington. I think between Washington and New England, that is my preferred landing spot between the 2. At that point, it would get really interesting between Drake May and JJ McCarthy for quarterback 3. I would probably still have Drake May ahead, but I'd likely have him in the same tier and would understand if somebody wanted to go JJ McCarthy instead because of the offensive foundation that's set there with the offensive-minded head coach and Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, the great group of pass catchers, whereas New England really doesn't have any. So I would understand if somebody wanted to go that route. I think in that scenario, there's room for him to move up to quarterback 3. I'd probably still have him right there with Drake May, very close, but I would understand if somebody moved him up at that point.
Yep. Fair. And if he goes to Minnesota and sits a year, is he still considered a first-round pick in your eyes, or is he someone that maybe falls back to the 2nd like we saw with the Will Levis situation last year?
I mean, if I can know ahead of time he's going to set for a year, he'd be a 2nd-round pick for me probably. But that's also because I'm not as high pre-draft on his talent as some are. If you think that he's right up there with Jaden Daniels and Drake May from a talent standpoint, then I have no problem on you take him in the 1st round. Like if you project him to be that level of a talent, he's a worthy investment even in the back of the 1st round. If you know he's going to miss out a year in Superflex, he's still worth the pick. But that's not how I view him.
Rhett, any take on JJ McCarthy before we finish the stream here?
I'm going to go ahead and say that if he lands in Minnesota and he's guaranteed a spot, I mean, it definitely helps his stock this year because assuming Justin Jefferson is still there as the wide receiver, we saw Justin Jefferson do a lot, still do a lot with a lot less the position last year than JJ McCarthy. So, I mean, that would make it certainly interesting. But once again, there's been some Jefferson rumors flying around the past couple weeks. Minnesota insists they're not trading him. Will they, won't they? I'm not sure, but that's one of those situations where you wouldn't be shocked if something happened during the draft and somebody wanted to make a splash and acquire Justin Jefferson during the draft just to steal some headlines. Wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, and I think the most recent headline is that they were coming out to say that he's possibility of the extension, the 5-year, $100+ million. And just touching on JJ McCarthy, if he ends up in Minnesota, I don't think there's a shot I'm moving him up at all because he, in my eyes, like you say, Drew, he may be the QB1 in terms of NFL quarterback talent. He may be the guy, great leader, goes in there, wins you games. But for fantasy purposes, I just don't see him entering that top 8 quarterback range, maybe even top 12. Like, he's great on third downs, he's great in situations, and that just screams game manager. And game managers don't necessarily create the most fantasy points on the weekly basis. The best thing he's got going for him, if he does end up in Minnesota, is being tied to that offense. He fits what the offense does. And Kyle Rudolph has even come out and said there's no way that a rookie quarterback's going to be able to go into that system and run it day one. They're going to have to sit. It is such a complicated system to run. You're not just going to be able to throw some fresh quarterback, rookie quarterback who just has no clue of the ins and outs of that system to go in there and run it. So any quarterback that lands up there rookie-wise, whether they move up for Drake May or they move up for Jaden Daniels or J.J. McCarthy, is most likely going to sit, and that's going to hurt their value. Jaden Daniels go ahead.
For me, the way that I view the quarterback class is like outside of Caleb Williams, I don't really know exactly what to make of any of these guys. Like it's wild to me seeing some of the Caleb Williams slander that goes on Twitter, which I know is a cesspool in itself. But like I just think he's such a step above the rest of these quarterbacks, and knowing what he's walking into in Chicago, like. Now, if you talk about first round picks overall, it might not be the best situation because, Patrick Mahomes was a first-round pick. He walked into a pretty great situation with Andy Reid and pass catchers and things like that. But as far as number 1 overall picks that went to situations that were bad enough to earn the number 1 overall pick or trade for, whatever the case may be, I don't know if there's a quarterback that's going to be better set up with the improvements they've made at offensive line and bringing in Keenan Allen and having DJ Moore there. And just as a team as a whole, I mean, the defense was good down the stretch. Like, the Bears are in a really good spot. It's just like Justin Fields is probably the only guy that's like, man, why couldn't you just guys do this for me? But
exactly.
But like, if he does go number 1 overall in the NFL draft, I think he's such a clear head and shoulders better talent than all the other quarterbacks in this draft that at that 101 is a no brainer to me. After that, it's like, hey, if you want to shuffle up Drake May, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy, I get they all have their flaws and the landing spots aren't going to be perfect. And so I can see situations where guys are moving those around. But unless you're sitting in your Superflex league and you've got Josh Allen and, Lamar Jackson or something like, something wild, I just can't imagine sitting at the 101 and not taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah, but even if you're in that situation where you are rich at quarterback and you have the 101, you'd almost be hurting your fantasy team by using that pick just on a wide receiver. Why wouldn't you try to move back and accumulate?
Try to trade down. Absolutely.
More assets in the draft or players in that sense to boost your team. Why just sit there and take that
trade down to the 102 or the 103?
Move back.
If you know the guys sitting at 2 or 3 are going to take a quarterback, trade down to the 104 to where you can guarantee yourselves one of Marvin Harrison or Malik Neighbors and add some draft capital on top of that. Get an extra second that you can throw at one of these running backs or something. You can move down and get something. But if you are in need of a quarterback and you're at the 101, just take Caleb Williams, man. Set it and forget it. It's easy. This is easy money.
That's it. All right, let's wrap. We got Shoot the Gap coming on right after us. We appreciate everyone that has jumped in and drafted with us, everyone that has hopped into the stream, everyone that has dropped a message in the comment section. We appreciate each and every one of you. Before we sign off, fellas, give me your favorite value pick of the draft and let the viewers and listeners know where they can find you and find all your great content, man.
Go ahead, Rhett.
All right, I can be found at Manuel Sports on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And in terms of my favorite value pick, I closed out the draft and everything. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm looking at the early 4th round. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm with Jorge. He's been big on this Malik Washington train. I like the upside on that guy, man. So early 4th round, Ricky Pearsall, early 3rd round, another guy I really like. Ray Davis in the 3rd round. Basically, anybody that I'm kind of high on in the 3rd round. Will Shipley, that's my own pick, no bias there. But you know, there are a lot of these guys in the 3rd round that I really feel like can provide some value. A lot of guys that will be pretty good NFL players in the right situation. But we're getting close to the time where we have to mention draft capital more and more and more right now. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah, for me, it's the pick we made at the 3-6. Ben Sanat, your boy. I know, Chris, you were the first person to bring him to my attention. You know, a lot of people's tight end 2 after the NFL Combine, and he in a tight end premium, he went as the tight end 3 in the middle of the 3rd round. If he ends up being the consensus tight end 2 post draft, like a lot of people have him now pre-draft, he's going to go a lot earlier than the 3-6. So I thought that was a good pick in the tight end premium league.
I considered him at the 3-1. I just got tired of picking him, to be honest.
Pick him in every
Seems like
mock
every
and
one of
every
these
real
drafts, I just keep taking him. So I just got tired.
You made a great pick. That it was between him and your pick at the 3-1 for my best value anyway. Yeah. So get him in the 2nd round. What are we doing? Get that man in the 2nd round.
There you go. And I'm excited for the draft class overall. I know there was a lot of down talk on the class as a whole, saying it might not be as valuable, but looking at the players in it, looking at this draft board, seeing the guys that are going in the 3rd, like we talked about, in the 4th, Washington and Cowing, Rice, we're gonna get some good value.
We do this every year. We do this every year, man. It's like
every year we do
toward the end of the football season, so the next draft class is so incredible, and then we spend the next few months hyping it up, and then all of a sudden the draft class sucks, and then we get to the NFL draft, and it's like, oh, the draft class is great again, and you got to stay water through the whole roller coaster, and you'll come out all right.
All right, that's it for the show. Stick around for Shoot the Gap for Rhett Manuel. For Drew Scott, I am Chris Battistill. We'll see you next time. Toodles.
This